water. It's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions.
What is going on, Raptors Nation? It is Luca back with the Raptors Nation podcast, coming to you every Thursday. Hope you're all doing well. We got a lot to talk about. The Toronto Raptors are obviously in a new phase of their franchise. They have finally picked a direction, and that direction is a rebuild. And while things aren't necessarily pretty as of now, things will get worse before they get better for this team. And the Raptors, it's all about setting themselves up nicely over the long haul and for the future. So in this one, we're going to speculate heavy on some Raptors who could be on the move before the NBA trade deadline, which is fast approaching. The NBA trade deadline is on February 8th. Raptors obviously have made some big trades within the last month, and they could definitely make a lot more. And then we will speculate if the Raptors are actually going to tank from here on out. Before we dive right into it, please do me a solid, everybody. Hit a like on the video. It helps it a ton. And also, please subscribe to the channel for more Raptors content over here on the Raptors Nation YouTube channel. We're almost at 1,000 subs on this channel, guys. So if you could help us hit that, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, you can get this podcast wherever you find your podcast, either on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review over there. So let's first begin with a player on the Raptors who is getting a lot of interest. I mean, we might be headed towards a Bruce Brown sweepstakes, guys. There has been a lot linked to Bruce Brown over the last little bit, and it seems like almost every team in the NBA has some sort of interest in Bruce Brown. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? Bruce Brown is the perfect type of role player for a team looking to make a playoff push or a playoff run. Seamless fit. We saw it. I mean, didn't have any time to practice with the Raptors in his first game with Toronto, and he was out there already making plays and looking good with the Raptors personnel. And that's what Bruce Brown is going to bring to a fringe contender and or contender. I mean, this is a guy who obviously was a big piece of the Denver Nuggets winning the championship a season ago, and he's a guy who can help a lot of teams. So with that being said, the Toronto Raptors have an opportunity here to cash in on a nice deal for Bruce Brown because he's highly coveted. And then obviously there's the other side of it if the Raptors do decide to keep Brown. But for as good as Brown is, and, you know, for as much as he can help this team in more ways than one, he just doesn't fit the Raptors timeline at this point. So it makes perfect sense to trade Bruce Brown and get even more assets to help your future. And that was pretty much what many people thought after they got him in the Pascal Siakam trade. I mean, that was the first thought that popped in my mind. You know, I knew that, you know, this is a guy that's probably not going to spend a whole lot of time in Toronto, and it's going to be one of those cup of coffee tenures. But before we get into the teams that have already been linked to Bruce Brown, and there have been a lot, let's take a look at what NBA insider Mark Stein said when he talked about what the Raptors' asking price could be for Bruce Brown. And Mark Stein on his podcast, hashtag This League Uncut, he said that Toronto would like a first-round pick and a quality player for Brown, saying the Raptors' asking price for teams interested in acquiring Bruce Brown has been described as a future first-round pick and a quality player at a minimum. So, I mean, if the Raptors can get a future first and a quality player for Bruce Brown, definitely make that deal. And that's definitely something that would help this team over the long run. So let's take a look at some of the teams that have already been linked to Bruce Brown. So First Shams did say this a bit ago. I mean, he did reveal that Bruce Brown has significant interest from around the league. And then Woj actually linked Bruce Brown at first to the Lakers and Knicks. And then Michael Scotto has linked Bruce Brown to the Mavs. And Jake Fisher has linked Bruce Brown to the Bucks. So going back to the Knicks situation, it was quite weird because, not sure if you guys caught it, but Bruce Brown actually spoke. I believe it was the New York Post. And he was basically just going off about like how he would love to play for Tom Thibodeau. And I get it. I mean, you know, you're going to keep it transparent. You're going to be upfront about it. But I just found it was weird, the timing of it all, because he actually, spoke highly about Thibodeau and playing for the Knicks, saying that he's a dog right before the Raptors played the Knicks, in which the Raptors lost that game. So Bruce Brown knows that, this can end up being a very short tenure with the Raptors. And then he was asked about it again by Michael Grange about all the rumors going on. And he was basically nonchalant about it. And, whatever happens, happens. So Bruce Brown, I mean, he's definitely not oblivious to what's going on. He, in all likelihood, knows he's going to be moved. So, yeah, the Knicks are a very interesting team. I mean, could they do another deal with the Raptors? The Lakers, they make a lot of sense because apparently, the Lakers wanted Bruce Brown last offseason, but then Brown ended up signing that nice deal with the Indiana Pacers. So maybe Brown finds his way on the Lakers. And, some of the other teams that were mentioned here, the Mavericks makes a lot of sense. They obviously didn't trade for a star. They were linked to Pascal Siakam. They didn't get that deal done, but Bruce Brown is the type of role player who would be a perfect fit alongside Luca, Kyrie, and some of those other players that they have over there in Dallas. And then the Bucks, they could use a Bruce Brown. I mean, another veteran presence to lead their bench unit, but I don't know what the Bucks would be able to offer because they obviously gave up a ton in that Damian Lillard trade. So, going back to what the Raptors asking price is, they want a first round pick and a quality player. And you look at the Lakers, and I did a separate video on this on the channel not too long ago. They have that 2029 first round pick, which would be very intriguing down the line if the Raptors could get that. But then it becomes an issue of, okay, which player would come back in that deal? I mean, are the Lakers going to give up a D'Angelo Russell? Would the Raptors want there's Rui Hachimura. I don't know if the Lakers would be willing to give up some of those pieces, but the Lakers, they got a future first rounder. Again, the Knicks, can they get aggressive and make yet another deal with the Toronto Raptors? So I think whatever happens here, the Raptors are actually in a really good position with Bruce Brown, because whenever you have a lot of teams who want a player on your team, I mean, it's going to come down to who's going to offer the best. And, that's a really good situation for the Raptors to find themselves in. It's going to go to the highest bidder. And, teams are going to want Bruce Brown because he is a guy who can fit on every single NBA roster. He is very, very versatile in terms of that. On both sides, he can impact the game, just the little things that he does. I'm a big fan of Bruce Brown. And, if the Raptors were in a different position, I would be the first guy to say keep him. But obviously the Raptors are in a rebuild, and it's more of interest to me if the Raptors trade Bruce Brown for a compelling package. And I mean, if the Raptors are able to get a future first rounder and a quality player for Bruce Brown, that is just a job well done by Masai Ujiri and this Raptors organization. So Bruce Brown could be one of many Raptors guys who are on their way out. And I mean, the Raptors could look a lot different post NBA trade deadline, as the Raptors, they could be headed for a potential fire sale. And I did say this on X. I am a big advocate of the Raptors doing this fire sale. It makes perfect sense. You just traded away, two pivotal pieces in Pascal Siakam and Anunoby. This is obviously a new era, new direction. It's all about the new young core, building around Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett. So it's all about reconstructing this roster from head to toe. So blow this thing up, fire sale this thing, and just, collect assets, because that's what the Raptors are interested in right now. They want to develop their young players, and they want future assets, whether that be young players or picks. And obviously, the Raptors got a whole lot of picks coming up. We're going to get to that more later on in the show. But going back to the Raptors fire sale, they got a bunch of veterans on their team and players on their team that could be of big interest to, again, teams looking to make a playoff push or a playoff run. And, obviously Bruce Brown, I just mentioned the situation with him. A lot of teams already inquiring, showing interest. So Raptors are going to have plenty of potential suitors for him. Another guy who could be on his way out, which makes sense, Dennis Schroeder and Dave McMenamin actually linked Schroeder to the Lakers. And that would actually be hilarious if Dennis Schroeder finds his way on the Lakers again. He's already had 2 stints with the Lakers, and if he gets traded there again, that would be his 3rd stint. But obviously, the Lakers, great familiarity with him. Schroeder was a big piece of that Lakers team that made that run to the Western Conference Finals, and Dennis Schroeder doesn't fit the Raptors timeline. He, again, could be a very good backup guard on a team looking to make a long playoff run. Then you have Chris Boucher, likely to be traded before the deadline. This is via Blake Murphy, and Jake Fisher linked Boucher to the Celtics earlier this month. He's a veteran guy who could, help a team, give them a backup big. And the Celtics, they could use a little bit more depth with their front court. So, Boucher could be on the move. Another guy is Gary Trent Jr., not necessarily a veteran player, but a guy who is on an expiring contract. And I know there's a lot of people who want to see Gary Trent Jr. stay on the Raptors, but I've already said my bit with Gary Trent Jr. He is too inconsistent of a player to me for the Raptors to re-sign long-term. So if the Raptors can trade Gary Trent Jr., I would be all in favor for that, because Gary Trent Jr., unfortunately, he is a streaky shooter, streaky scorer, and when his shot doesn't fall, we've seen it, he provides nothing else for this Raptors team. And that is, simply a liability at that point, because I don't know what's been going on with Gary Trent Jr., but he's having a very down year. And obviously he's had his role complicated coming from off the bench. Now he's inserted back into the starting lineup given the recent trades. But I would be more in favor of trying to trade Gary Trent Jr., especially since he's on that expiring deal. So the Nets and Lakers are interested in Gary Trent Jr. This was reported by Matt Moore of the Action Network. And Matt Moore actually added on to that, saying that the Raptors are not done, and word is that everyone who isn't Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, or Jakob Poeltl is available. The Raptors want to reset their timeline in terms of the age of their players, and then that obviously would bring in, guys like Thad Young and Otto Porter Jr., who just, spike up that age of the Raptors, a Garrett Temple. But I found this interesting because obviously Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett, that's the young core, right? They're not going anywhere for a while. But I did find it interesting that he brought Jakob Poeltl into that equation as well, because Jakob Poeltl, he has made it known that he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuilding situation. And obviously this team has transformed since the Raptors re-signed him. Fred left, they traded OG and Siakam. So I did find that interesting. But at the same time, we have seen what not having a true big has done to this Raptors team, because the Raptors, the new look Raptors, at least, they looked a lot better to begin this year. Now, granted, some of those games were with Pascal Siakam, but Jakob Poeltl, they have really hurt with him not in the lineup. The Raptors have been dominated inside on the glass. So Jakob Poeltl, he's 28 years old. He could be that, lone veteran that still remains on this team to kind of right the ship with the new guys. So maybe the Raptors, are interested in keeping him for the next little bit. And they did just lock him up to that extension. So based on what Matt Moore said, it looks like the Raptors won't move Jakob Poeltl ahead of the trade deadline. But everybody else, it seems like they could be on the move. Yeah, we could very well see a full-on fire sale. And I think it does make sense at this point for the Toronto Raptors to get younger, shed some of these players, and again, just continue to stack up on picks and young assets. That's what it's all about right now, while continuing to develop the younger talent on this team. So speaking of the younger talent on this team, it has been clear that the Raptors right now, they are prioritizing developing the young players over wins and losses. And it's been pretty evident to see. Will Toronto tank? Well, this was a very interesting quote that basically suggests the Raptors are in this thing to tank the rest of the way. Now, this is per Michael Grange. He said also from practice today, interesting answer when Savannah Hamilton asked Darko what his priorities are for the second half of the season. To which Darko said, and I quote, "I think of the big picture of where team is going and how we need this team to develop toward the end of the season and into the summer and into next season. That trumps everything. So if that means we're going to play less zone so we can get better in our individual defense and really focus on that, then it's going to be that. We're not going to sacrifice anything on our team development or player development. That's most important thing for us. Establishing the chemistry between the players and developing those young guys on the court and off the court is the absolute priority." So tell me you're tanking without telling me you're tanking. That's basically it. Without saying it, it's clear the Raptors are all about prioritizing player development over wins and losses the rest of the way, which is the absolute right call. Because I know people don't want to sit through a tank. They don't want to sit through a bunch of losses, but there's no point for this Raptors team to try to push for the play-in. And that's really what they would only have a shot at. They're not going to get into the top 6. And, I know they're still only, a few games back of the play-in, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make sense. And you got to look at the big picture here. The Raptors, they could be interested in keeping their 2024 first round pick, which is a draft that is going to see them get very, very busy to begin with. We know how many picks the Raptors already have in the draft, 3 of them, and it could potentially be a 4th if they end up keeping their 2024 first round pick. And if you look at it right now, the Raptors do have the 6th worst record in the NBA. The Grizzlies won again somehow. They beat Miami. So if the Raptors lose to the Clippers, they're going to continue to separate themselves as being the 6th worst team in the league. And if the Raptors do finish with the 6th worst record, they would have a 45.8% chance of keeping that pick. And I've already said this going back to last month. I think it's the play for the Raptors to bottom out and keep their 2024 first round pick. Now, I know that would then convey to the Spurs having the Raptors 2025 first round pick, but that is top 6 protected. And really, I don't see the Raptors being anything special for this season and next season. So there is a possibility the Raptors could even be a bottom 6 team next year. And that 2025 draft is a good draft. So then it would just convey to the next one, 2026. And then if that doesn't hit for the Spurs and the Raptors are somehow a bottom 6 team in that draft, then it becomes 2 second rounders. But you look at the Raptors for this draft, I think it makes sense for them to keep it. Like I said, it doesn't make sense to go for it. This isn't a good team right now. Let's just call it for what it is. There's going to be a lot of losing. So they're already going to be busy coming up with this draft. Keep that pick and make the 2024 NBA draft your draft. A draft where if you absolutely ace, maybe this rebuild goes to plan and, just expedites everything. And you're back all of a sudden in business sooner rather than later. Because you look at it right now, guys, the Raptors are projected to have their own number 6 pick, the number 16 pick via the Pacers. And by the way, I hope the Pacers continue to lose. Sorry, Siakam, but Pacers are 0-3 with Siakam. If the Pacers keep losing, that helps the Raptors pick there. Projected to have the number 26 pick via OKC and then number 31 via Detroit. So it's going to be a very, very busy draft. 3 picks for sure. That 4th looking likely, especially if the Raptors continue to lose down the stretch here. So the Raptors, it is in their best interest not to care about wins and losses now. And, hopefully during the process of it, we do see the young guys blossom because that's my expectation for the rest of the season. I just want to see competitive basketball and I want to see the young guys show me some things. I love that Grady Dick looked good in that blow loss against the Knicks. Little things like that. If the Raptors are going to lose, hopefully there's some takeaways that can make you feel good. A Grady Dick breakout game. Scotty Barnes looking good, consistently limiting his turnovers. RJ Barrett continuing his consistent play with the Raptors. Really, he's only had one bad game with the Raptors. It was that 4-point game that he had against Utah. Can Emmanuel quickly find his form? He's been struggling to shoot the ball a little bit the last bit here. And by the way, he is day-to-day. He will miss the game against the Clippers. So the Raptors, they're going to do a lot more losing down the stretch here. Their schedule's not getting any easier. It does make sense for them to prioritize player development over wins. So I'm all in on this. The Raptors are going to tank. They're going to tank. And again, guys, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So this is a team that, they're in it, obviously, in terms of the rebuild. And I get it, right? Because, I've been following the Raptors going back to when I was a kid, call it 1999. That was a whole while ago. And I understand there's a whole generation of Raptors fans that never experienced losing seasons, consecutive losing seasons. I mean, for those of you, who were fans from the beginning, you've seen the entire Raptors era in front of your eyes. You know that the Raptors had to go through some very, very bad seasons, post Vince. And it took a while before this team finally had that decade run of success when, they did have the DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry era, which obviously led to the Kawhi era, winning the championship. And then really, I mean, the only really, really bad season the Raptors have had in recent memory was the Tampa season, other than the one they're having now. So I get it. There's a whole generation of Raptors fans not used to sitting through bad seasons and playing the long-term game and hoping for, future success by sucking now. So this is brand new territory for a lot of fans, but it's always a certain thing that every team has to go through a down period before they're good again. You look at some of the all-time, winningest teams, the Lakers, look at the Warriors before they endured the dynasty that they just had. They weren't good before that. So there's peaks and valleys. That's just life, not only in the NBA, it's life in sports. You're never going to stay at the top. And given the Raptors' run of just, putting together winning seasons, they were only behind Golden State over the last decade of doing that. So this team has been good when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, in the big picture of things over the last decade. And now, if they're not going to be so good for the next couple of years, it's their time to just kind of pay the dues, be patient, and then, hope this thing can turn sooner rather than later. But every team experiences down periods before they rise again. And we're going to see it now. The Raptors going through this rebuild. And I don't even think this is going to be as bad as people think. Like I said, the Raptors are bad this season and next. That would be best case scenario, I think. And then they're back on their feet. And this is with, Barnes quickly and Barrett gelling. If you can nail the draft picks this upcoming 2024 NBA draft, I think that's going to speed up things entirely. So I think the Raptors are in a good spot already, because teams go into rebuilds without even having a young core and without even having a budding star. And the Raptors obviously already have Barnes, and they have some nice sidekick pieces to him and quickly and Barrett. And like I said, if they can nail the draft, they should be back in business sooner rather than later. That is going to conclude today's show. Just want to talk about the latest in Raptors land. Let me know your thoughts to all this, guys. And are you in favor of the Raptors tanking the rest of the way? Let me know your thoughts, guys. Hit a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is it for me. It's Luca signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe.